What are we talking about here today? Attracting and working with angel investors. And I think lots of young people here are really waiting to hear who is an angel investor. How do we find them? And when we find them, how do we ensure that we keep them? How do we ensure that we get the money from them and every other thing they'll be offering? Most importantly, how do we ensure we do not lose them? What are they looking out for? These are the key questions here today. I know I've actually introduced my panelists earlier on, but I would like them to introduce themselves once again. And in a nutshell, just tell us what they do so you understand who is before you here today for network purposes. Mr. Collins.
Okay, my name is Collins Onuegbu. My day job, I run a tech company called Signal Alliance in the day. But my night job, I'm a director with the Lagos Angel Network. I don't have wings. I don't have money. But once in a while, we support and invest in startups.
Fantastic. All right then. Neku?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Neku. I'm the country director for MEST in Nigeria. What we do at MEST is we go around Africa, we find the most aspiring technology entrepreneurs. We give them a 1-year full scholarship out of our school in Accra. And at the end of the year, they pitch their business ideas to us. If we see potential, we invest $50,000 to $250,000. And then we continue to give them support to help them grow. So we really work at that bottom of the pyramid, and we believe in investing in people first.
Fantastic. All right then.
My name is Oyebode. My day and night job, I'm the executive secretary of the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. But specifically for this conversation, we've got a program called Lagos Innovates, where we're trying to support the Lagos startup ecosystem and ultimately make Lagos the preferred destination of investment and technology startups across Africa.
Well, I guess you've actually heard that, so you know who to talk to at the end of this discussion. Let me start off by asking, really, who is an angel investor? I mean, I'm used to the term investor. I mean, someone who invests in any kind of business, but then we have the angel added to it to begin with. And we're talking about that in the tech space. Who really is an angel investor? Of course, I'd like you to start with, Mr. Collins.
Look, you have different asset classes, right? You have private equity companies. You have venture capital companies. They all invest at different levels in the growth of a company. The angel investor comes in at the very early stage when a company is at very early stage and helps you, give you some small money, give you some mentoring, and then gives you access to his network. So the typical angel is somebody who has built a career or built a company and now wants to come and invest in younger companies. So he basically uses his own money. Once you go beyond the angel investor, the venture capital companies or the private equity companies use institutional money. But the angel investor, for most times, uses his own money to invest in companies.
Interesting. I'm going to stay with you on that, being the director for Lagos Angel Network. When you talk about coming at the early stage of a business, I was also going through some couple of material on the internet about what angel investors are looking out for. And there are those who say an angel investor is not looking out to come take a look at your research. Most of them are not really interested in, at that early stage you just described. So when we talk about the early stage, give us a bit of more detail as to what an angel investor wants to see when he comes to drop his money. What are we looking out for here?
Look, at the very early stage of a company, most times what you see is the founder, okay? At that point, he's selling you the future you have not seen. I mean, look, you're investing when he's 1 year old, when he's 2 years old, when he's 3 years old, when he's up to 5 years. At that point, the company has not been built. So a lot of times, you have to trust that the founder of this company can sell you a vision you can invest in. So you're mostly investing in that person. No matter what idea he has, the idea could be good, but you have to invest in somebody who has a good idea and can execute it. So you have to trust your judgment that you are backing the right person who is good enough to carry out the venture he wants to run.
All right. Akin, talking about ensuring you're backing the person with the right idea, you're backing the right person, as you put it. What would you look out for as an investor?
I mean, I think So this is a fairly easy question to answer for me because I've got a great example. Where is Oyebode? Is he still here? Okay, so he's gone, so I can use him as an example. So when I met him, he had just moved to Nigeria from Canada. He was a very ambitious young man. Every time he called me for a mentoring session, I'd give him a time like 11 p.m. at my house in Yaba. He didn't have a car. He would come by Okada and wait at my Megat shed till it was time for our meetings. And he was talking to me to invest in a business called BookNetO. Yes, before Fora. I wasn't quite convinced it was a great idea for Nigeria at the time. But it was very obvious to me that that guy was going to be super successful. And, you know, because I was very broke at the time, you know, I couldn't put money behind what I knew was eventually going to be a successful story. But you see, the thing for me is, I think for me personally, and my personal investment ethos, especially at the very early stage, is you're backing more the entrepreneur than the business. So it's more around the jockey than the horse. Because you're almost certain that at some time, that jockey will find a good horse, right? And if that jockey finds a good horse, then you found a successful story. So it's always about how the entrepreneur thinks about solving problems. It's about the character of the entrepreneur. Personally, I like to say, I like to back people that have failed before because it speaks very clearly to resilience. I'm not saying that go ahead and go and destroy a company, right? But again, it speaks to the resilience of the entrepreneur. And in some instances, and this is me personally, I don't speak generally, I also like to see people who potentially have some experience either working for a startup previously or working for a structured organization in the same area they want to intervene in. Because ultimately, you don't want people who are entrepreneurs by circumstance, right? You know, so that whole stuff where you just say, you know, I don't want to work for anyone, right? And people think like that's some sexy stuff, you know, I want to work for myself. Like, come on, man, like, the reality of this stuff is that the best entrepreneurs learn from best-in-class processes, right? That's why the Google alums, the Facebook alums, those guys go off to spin off some of the most successful businesses because they've seen a business scale firsthand. And that's a very important requirement for me as an individual.
Interesting. Now, Neku, I see that I keep on hearing this thing about personality reverberating. We had this discussion just before we got on stage as well, how important it is to deal with the person and not just the idea. But I do understand the idea as well is important. I mean, that's what you're putting your money into in the first place. But how big is this whole importance around the personality, the person behind the idea, the person behind the projections for the business for which we're asking for funds?
It's absolutely important. I love that analogy with the jockey and the horse for some private reasons. But with what we do at MEST, we really invest in people pre-idea stage. So we're looking for people that, you know, can be persistent because entrepreneurship is so hard. It's so difficult. You know, you see the one successful person and you don't see the absolute, you know, whole organization behind that person, the understanding the legal structure, your accounting, understanding how to, you know, properly motivate your networks. That person that can, I remember we were speaking with Chris Cox from Facebook, and he said when Mark Zuckerberg was going around starting Facebook, he went to different Ivy League schools and he convinced people to drop out. So how important is that leader to be able to sell their vision to other people, that you leave what you're doing and you say, I'm going to follow you and put my neck out for what you're trying to build. So the person is extremely important. And I think actually E is a great example. He leads with so much empathy. He tries to put himself in other people's shoes, in his customers' shoes, in his staff's shoes, and it really helps you to grow a business. So when we're looking for people to put money behind, we're looking for that high level of just personal responsibility, taking someone's money and not going to buy a car first, or, you know, being able to be responsible for, if I take an investor's money, how I use that money will affect so many people after me. That's what people don't think about. Once an investor is burnt, the next time that they're listening to someone that might have the really amazing idea, you're like, I've had a bad experience, so I don't want to work with that sector anymore, or I don't want to work with guys from Lagos because I worked with one guy that burnt me. So owning that responsibility when you take someone else's money, when you take someone else's time, that's even more important. People sitting with you and giving you the advice is taking their time. Understanding the responsibility that you take, it's why the person's so important.
Interesting. Collins, let's assume every young person or everyone in this room fits that personality Neku and Akin have just described. Now, how do we find these angel investors? Or rather, how do we ensure they find us to start with? I mean, is it wise to actually put our ideas, broadcast the idea to like a flock of angels, hoping someone will come down with the funds? Or is there a need to actually identify like a focus group of angels and then, of course, sell that idea to them? How does it work?
Anybody that has some money and wants to put in a startup is an angel. So, as Akin has said here, Akin is an angel investor. You are an angel investor. I'm an angel investor. Now, what the Lagos Angel Network has done is bring all these people who like investing in startups together to form a network so that we can kind of professionalize it. So we're almost like creating a proper asset class and make sure that even as an investor, okay, I need to be trained to be an angel investor. Look, when I came out of university, my first investment as an angel was once I came out of university, I funded a friend. And it was a terrible investment. The company died a few years later. I was just ignorant. I just gave money out. I think over the years, being a member of Lagos Angel Network, we've invested in ourselves to learn how to invest, to learn how to look for companies to invest in. So we're a little more conservative now. I don't throw money around anymore. But what it does for us is that we can see all the things we've talked about here. We can see the serious people. We can see the serious ideas. And people come to us and pitch. Look, Nigeria has 180 million people. When you wake up every day, there are possibly 180 million ideas about a business. So how do we get the few that we're going to invest in? We have to find a way of sifting that through. In Lagos Angel Network, people come to pitch us. We have a secretariat, we have an executive secretary who collects people who apply to us, and then they pitch us through our monthly programs. We have a deal day program that we run once a quarter, and then we have syndicates. I run a syndicate in the network, so people can pitch to my syndicate, and my syndicate can invest. So we have several windows for people to find us. We also want to find ourselves. Our executive secretary is here scouting for startups, so if you don't see me, you can look for our executive secretary, and you can come into our network. I think the biggest problem we have as Lagos Angel Network is to get other people to join the network because we want to broaden the base of angel investors in the country.
And that's what I really want to know. Talking about getting other people to join the network. I mean,
Yes.
there are money bags in this room, I perceive.
We're not
looking for where to put the
bags,
money.
by the way.
No, but the thing is, what's the criteria? So how do we become part of it? I have money right now. I'm looking for where to put the money. How do we become a part of your group to expand that network?
Look, joining the Lagos Angel Network is very simple. If you talk to me or talk to the secretary or you go to our website, you can join. We pay some money to maintain the network, so it's not a free-for-all network. You have to pay because we tax ourselves to build this network. What we pay every year is quite a bit high to be a member of the network. But remember, we are using our money to invest. We want to build an institution that can make sure that they invest in the right kind of companies.
Interesting. Well, Neku, I'm going to come to you now, talking about, we're talking about this angel investing. Money is what I keep hearing. I mean, that's what the young ones want. And that's what innovators want, really, in their businesses. But what else is an angel investor looking out for? Is it just money, equity ownership? What should an innovator prepare for when an angel investor comes into the picture?
I keep turning it off to be polite. I think money is almost, it's definitely not top three that you should be looking for when speaking with an investor. There's so many other things that, as I was speaking with you earlier, there's some investors that the group of people that you're trying to reach and you've been working to reach for many years, they can do that at the snap of your fingers, pick up the phone and get you a business contract or something that reaches millions of people, is that not worth more than giving you $10,000, $20,000? I also believe in angel investors that are, or just generally investors that are sector focused, because they're able to really be the best at what they do and bring that to the entrepreneur. So as I was saying to you, you have to understand the angel investors' motivations. There's some investors that invest just so they can be at a dinner party and say, oh, actually, you just used Uber and Flutterwave paid, I'm invested in that. And they're not really interested in making money back. There's some investors that want to invest because, they want to create more jobs. There's investors that just enjoy hanging out with young people. They've worked for a really long time. They've made a lot of money and they want to know what is this cool thing that these young people are building. So understanding the investors' motivations, and absolutely the same way you would research if you were applying for a job or if you were going for an interview, researching that person, I think absolutely do that. When I first met my CEO, I found out that he loved salmon fishing. And so I did all the research I could on salmon fishing, and we had an awesome conversation about that. And that is, I think, when I spend time with people and we're able to connect on things outside of just give me money, oh, I saw that you know Akin, for example. How can you put me in touch with Akin? I want to understand, if I do that, what value are you asking from Akin? Are you going to burn my relationship with Akin? So I think knowing those things is extremely important. So research the investor.
Okay, I see you nodding. You kind of agree with most of what she's just said.
Akin agrees with everything I say.
I can tell us more.
The easiest thing is I always agree with Neku. But I think, so if you think about the entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur is someone who mobilizes resources, takes risk, and hopes to earn a profit, right? Now, the most important resource, of course, is labor. And so how you are able to attract, motivate, and retain talent is critical. So if you are if I sit across a founder who I think will struggle to sell the business to me, to sell that passion to, it's very difficult to see how that person is going to motivate and retain great talent. Because without great talent, business is dead. So personally, that's the question I always want to ask. That if I was 22 and I was asked to forego my career in banking to come and work for my whatever your business is called, what will make me do that from listening to you? So that's very important. But I think why I agree very much with Neku is from an investor's perspective, there has to be a fit with your portfolio companies, right? So if I'm investing in a space, it's either I'm interested in that space, I want to understand it better, or it's a space where I have complementary skills I can bring to the table, or a place where I think my network can help the business grow significantly. And I think in the same way, the founders must also ensure that they are a fit for the investor. So why do you talk to Mr. A and not Mr. B? It's because Mr. A's investment ethos align with what your company seeks to achieve. So that's very critical. Now, you also asked a very important question around discovery. And I think that's the biggest problem we face in Nigeria. The investment ecosystem is still fairly opaque. So investors do not know where the companies exist, etc. Now, one of the things that we certainly hope to do with our Lagos Innovate program is to bring a lot more transparency. So almost host speed dating events where investors can meet a pool of startups, etc. And one of the reasons why we have a workspace voucher program is identifying people who don't have any capital or very little capital, providing them with a voucher that allows them walk out of co-working spaces for a period of time. Because if you talk about discovery, one of the places where investors go to look for companies is a bunch of co-working spaces across the city, right? So you walk into a workstation or passion incubator or what's lit space, or Capital Square, etc. And you want to go and see who's doing what there, who can I talk to there. The guys who have walked out of Co-Creation Hub, for example, a lot of them have gotten investments just because they were at CC Hub. That's how they were discovered. So I think also, if you have the opportunity to, I'm not saying go and burn money working out of a workspace, but you need to ask yourself, where do investors go? It's almost like if you are selling a lifestyle or a luxury product, you are likely going to find Neku at a polo tournament, right? But if you are looking to sell a mass market product to someone like me, you might come to a Nikon Stadium where stationary stores is playing. So you've got to figure out, where does the investor look for businesses, and how do I position myself in those places to ensure that they reach me first? Because the thing is, if you are wallowing at home saying, how do I get to Collins? Now, Collins makes it sound very easy. It's like, talk to my executive secretary, Collins is a very busy man, right? So if he leaves this place now, to find him is hard work, you know. But maybe once a month he goes into a hub to just talk to the businesses there. You must understand that this is where people get discovered. And I think the final point is, and this is my own issue as an investor, so I'll say it loud and clear. Like, when you talk to people, and the first thing they say to you is, oh, you need to sign an NDA. You know, I'm just like a joker, right? Like, there are like 6 people pitching your same idea to me, right? So if you come to me and say, sign an NDA, or I'm sending you a non-transferable version of my deck, I'm just like, this one has an execution problem. Like, this one is just like, someone else can take my idea and execute it much better than me. And for me personally, that's a red flag. But again, to finalize, these are my own private thoughts. So you might find some investors elsewhere who have the complete opposite of my thoughts. Thank you
so much. Private thoughts. We're rounding up already. In a nutshell, just tell us that one principle that, you know, an innovator must follow if you want to attract an angel investor. Just put it out there for us.
I think absolutely do your research. And just to say, I think that the opportunity that is in places like, you know, the States, England, is you can go and work for a PayPal, you can go and work for a Google. What he said with places like CC Hub, with places like what MEST does, is we're creating those comfortable environments to create global standards. The reason that investors go there is because they know that we have strong KPI processes, we have strong reporting processes, we're able to teach these entrepreneurs how to properly present their business. I get a lot of people just messaging me long, you know, business plans and like, okay, please now give me 300 million. That's really not the way.
Just talking about that, how important is it to include projections in the business plan?
Absolutely important, because if it's almost like, think of it like if I came to ask you for money, what would you want to see? Would you want to know that I can pay you back? Yes, you would. How can I pay you back? You'd want to see, what are you going to do with this money? If I say, okay, I'm going to take 50 naira, I'll give you 100 naira. How? I think that whenever you approach these things, think of it as like the most basic level and put yourself in the investor's shoes. Don't think of it like, oh, there's millions of dollars. Think of it as somebody asked you what you can afford. What would it take for you to be convinced to give them that money? And then think of it in that way. What research would you want them to come backed up with? How much time do you want to take, etc.? And yes, you know,
fantastic.
Approach places like LAN and LSETF.
All right, then, so Collins, in a nutshell, what do we have to do? What is that one thing we cannot afford, or that one thing we can afford to do to ensure that we get that money? Collins, it's all about getting the money to do. It's all about getting the money. What do we do?
I think that one of the things that I would advise any startup today is to avoid I think your job is to build a company, right? And I invest in the company and you make a return to me, because angel money is not free money. Now, it's important that the startup focuses his time on building his business and avoids thinking that raising money is his business. So if you go to pitching competitions all over Lagos and all over the world today, I see startups that pitch to me and the first thing they talk about is they just want a competition in Netherlands. Okay? They just want a competition to go to Silicon Valley. And I'm asking, how does that build your business? Okay, what is that to me? We've gotten into a situation where what most startups are pitching today is a competition they won. And for me, that is very dangerous.
But isn't that part of the credentials you also want to see? You know, to ensure this person has a track record.
It might look nice to the tech press, right? And it might look nice that you get a bit of publicity. And sometimes it helps. But when you get into the funk of going from one pitching to the next, pitching to the next, pitching to the next, pitching, and all you're pitching is how many things you won, and I'm looking at your numbers are not growing, And remember that when you are supposed to be building your business, you're supposed to be building the business. You're not a PR person. So I will advise that you settle down. When you build a nice business, people will come to you. Okay, don't pitch too much.
I guess it's time now for questions from the audience. Just, is anyone going around with the microphone? Yes, there's a young man behind you there.
My name is Prince Will. I'm a plumber. I'm in the service sector. So I have a startup that basically gives you your personal handyman in your pocket. So if I approach an angel and I need that angel as an advisor, how do I go about it? Like, I don't need your money. I can bootstrap to the top. So I need you as an advisor. How do I go about that?
Fantastic. Akin?
I mean, I think that's a really good question. And I think with advisory, with people who do stuff in advisory capacity, everything is always give and take, right? So they want to learn from you. If you ask me personally, that's a space personally I want to understand better, right? So advising you gives me an opportunity to understand that space a lot better. And so your ability to share your knowledge of the industry is very important, right? So if you have 10 minutes to show how much do you know, I actually want to learn from you. I don't think I'll understand plumbing as well as you do. I can't fix a leak, right? But what I probably can understand is I can share with you some consistent methods of how to build businesses, of how to understand customers, of how to ask probing questions, of how to manage resources. Now that's what we can bring to you. Now what you will bring to us is subject matter expertise that helps to increase or improve our understanding. And for all one of the things that we also want to do at the Employment Trust Fund is now to start recruiting a pool of mentors. And people like MEST already do that, right? So, and why it's good to work for people who I think have international affiliations is they also don't limit your mentorship range to local mentors, right? So they help you remove the distance barrier to meeting mentors. Because for all you know, there's a guy in India who's done something similar to you 5-7 years ago, and you can literally walk in that person's path. Does that help you?
Well, thank you very much, Akin. Can we have the young man over there?
Can I just quickly add that also be really clear about your ask. I think when people ask me for my time, for example, I want to know how much time am I giving to you, and then when you come to meet me, to come really prepared with everything that you're going to want me to discuss about. I see people in board meetings just going over their past numbers as opposed to spending time on how can we achieve the next goals. So just be clear about your ask.
Fantastic. So let's have the young man over there. Does he have a microphone now? He's just right here in front. He's close to the guy who asked the first question. Yes.
Thank you for your time. I'm a student from Covenant University, and we have a team. My question goes to Mrs. Neku. We have a team, and we want to, let's say, approach your startup with an idea. It's in the idea phase. We are not really out to make profit. Let's say more of a social company. You really want to just make impact, but the level of impact you want to make requires funding, but you actually just are passionate about the idea with your team. So how does that kind of team or individual approach, let's say, Lagos Incubator?
So we're actually, I think that's a great question. We get that quite a bit. We're recruiting at the moment, so I'd suggest that you apply. What we do, we are quite strict with the spending 1 year with us, because we've seen people come with an idea, and then after like literally 2 weeks, we break the idea apart and they realize that this can't work, but they end up building, really cool things off of pivoting from that idea. And then when you pitch the idea, of course, we're helping you for the whole year. We want to invest in you, so we want to build it to a stage that it's investable. We bring a panel of international VCs to say, yes, I'd invest in this. And then when we get that confirmation, we're like, yes, we're going to put our money in it. So I absolutely suggest apply to the program. It's a free 4-year scholarship. You get to work with the most amazing people from all around the world. And we now have 8 different African countries in our school in Accra. So it's also just learning from people in different countries as well. We've had people building something where someone in Kenya says, actually, like that example, we built that 2 years ago, and this is how it worked, and this were the problems.
Fantastic.
So yes, we'd love to have you.
All right. Well, just while we're trying to get the microphone to the lady down there, Collins, I'd like you to contribute to that particular question. Is there any hope for this young man and his team with the, the Angel network here in Lagos?
Look, first of all, I want to congratulate you that as a student you are forming a company. Which year are you in? 4th year. So you have 1 more year to go? 2 more years? Okay. I think it's great that we have people that form companies in the universities. What Neku said makes sense. You should apply to one of the incubators and get your ideas incubated. I like the idea that you want to set up a business, you don't want to make money. Maybe because you are very young. But when you come out of university, you find that you need money to survive. So by then, maybe your ideas will become, you change it a bit. But it's all good. I mean, I admire you. Keep your team working. Get into a hub and incubator. In the hub or incubator, they'll teach you how to make money. And then maybe after that, you can come to Lagos and J Network.
Fantastic. So do we have the microphone now with the lady?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tiwa Lola. I'm a lawyer. I work with ALEX. I have a question and a comment regarding the NDA issue that Mr. Oyebode mentioned. And it was pretty interesting that it said that, because we've had the experience of having a number of people approach us to say they've had challenges approaching investors who do not enter into NDAs and later use whatever idea it is that they have pitched. So it's pretty interesting hearing from the perspective of the investor why they would not want to sign an NDA, because I would imagine that the fact that the inventor or the tech person has taken some steps to preserve the integrity of whatever it is they've created should be an added value for the investor. So if Mr. Oyebode could please shed a little more light on why that is off-putting for him. Thank you.
Very important question.
So thank you. That's an excellent question. So the first thing is, lawyers make money from NDAs, right? So I can understand the legal perspective. Now if we speak seriously, so if you have intellectual property that you think needs protecting, then go and protect the IP, right? So again, I'm no lawyer. You're better at me than this thing, but go and register the trademark or go and copyright whatever it is. If you think there's some IP there that's proprietary to you, then by all means go and protect that IP. But recognize that investors, like employers, see people a dime a dozen, right? So when I interviewed people when I worked in banking, I interviewed 50 people a week to hire for one role. When I see businesses, you are going to see 20, 30 businesses, right? All of you are pitching similar ideas. You're either trying to be Nigeria's new e-commerce business, you're trying to bring handymen to homes. Like, the ideas are not, like anything you've thought about, someone else somewhere has thought about this stuff. So if it's IP, go and fix the IP and know that you've protected yourself. Now, also to the point around investors stealing your business, this is where the investor fit is very important. Because honestly, people in Nigeria don't talk. Now, if you take a business to someone and the person jacks your business, by all means call them out, right? By all means make it clear that people won't go back to them. So when everybody says, oh, someone stole my idea but they can't speak about it publicly, then who are you serving? The investor fit is very important to you, and one of the things that you are checking for is the ethical fit with the investor. So that you are going to someone you think can steal your idea already tells me that you haven't done that fit properly. You haven't even done that work properly. So if you think about that whole process and the thought process around it, right, you see why it's very difficult for an investor to say, I'm going to sign an NDA with you when there are 3 other people pitching the same idea or something similar, looking for the same limited capital, right, who will not go through an NDA process. And the final point I want to reiterate is it many times shows an inability to execute flawlessly. Because if there are 5 of you with the same idea and you're worrying about your idea going out, there's already someone who is executing on that idea without that concern. So that's the investor's perspective. They see 5 of you. What you see is your business and your opportunity to maximize value from it.
Well, thank you so much, Akin. That's a very important point you've just made there. It's really been very interesting sitting with you guys and hearing what you have to say about attracting investors and, of course, ensuring that you keep them for a long time. Please put your hands together for my panelists. Mr. Collins Onuegbu, Director, Lagos Angel Network. Thank you for coming. Neku Atawodi-Ekun, GM, Lagos Incubator. Please put your hands together for them one more time. And Akintunde Oyebode, Executive Secretary, Lagos State Employment Trust Fund.